Hi everyone and welcome to Blackwood Engage Layout. Revolution Trains Class 320 makes an appearance. There's been a bit more work in terms of completing the scenery up to the next rail bridge, and of course we have a running session. Hope you enjoy. So let's start by looking at Revolution Trains Class 320. The model was released back in the spring of this year, and the 320 is the stablemate of the Class 321, which is the 4-car version. Now, looking at the model overall, it's certainly impressive in terms of detail, etc., and Revolution have to be commended on this particular aspect. In terms of the motor, which is in the centre car, I found it to be fairly quiet, but powerful enough. It's also got good slow running capabilities and responds well when running on DC. The one area which the model falls down on is its running capabilities. Out of the box, it constantly derails. Doesn't like medium radius points. It will find any minor track defects you have, and reverse curves, it does not like them either. Now, the reason for this poor running is down to the couplings on the train. Rather than the standard Rapido couplings, these are actual electrical couplings to maintain electrical continuity throughout the length of the train. This, I believe, is really more to do with DCC, so that you only really require to put in one chip rather than having to put in chips at either end of the unit. Now, I did contact Revolution Trains because of the poor running qualities, and they did come back to me and they advised that I do 3 things. Firstly, they suggested that I loosen the screws which hold the wheel sets on. That's to give them more lateral movement. Now, when I did have a look at the wheel sets, the screws were tightened really tight and there was no lateral movement. So what Revolution Trains advise is to loosen the screws and then tighten them back up, but as soon as the screw starts to bite, you don't tighten it anymore. The second thing they said is that when you connect the cars together, that what you in actual fact do is you actually pull the connections. Once they've been pushed in together, you pull the connectors out very slightly, so they're not really tight. And the third thing that they suggested I do, which I didn't do, was to remove the body shells and then bend the chassis slightly. Now, I really didn't think that was what you really needed to do with a brand spanking new train, so I passed on that. Now, the first 2 bits of advice which I obviously followed, which was loosening the bogies, and obviously when you connect the trains, they did improve the running qualities of the train. A number of the derailments that I was suffering stopped, but it still didn't cure all of the derailments. So rather than bend the chassis, I looked at doing something else, and the problem obviously is with these connectors. So on one of the leading driving cars, I have in actual fact disconnected the wiring because when I took the body shell off to actually look at how the connector actually works, I realised, or I believe, that the wiring is actually interfering with the free movement of the coupling. So I have actually disconnected the wiring. Now, because this layout is DC, that doesn't affect the running of the train. Obviously, if it was DCC, you couldn't really do that because it would obviously affect the running of the train. But I have actually disconnected the wires. Train still runs absolutely fine, and I believe that I now have a 3-car unit that will in actual fact negotiate virtually any combination of track. So what I'll do now is I'm going to put the train onto the original inside or the original layout, because the track is tighter there in terms of the radius, and I'm going to run it round so that it'll go through some curve points which are an S bend, it'll go through a double slip, it'll go through short radius points, and we'll see whether or not the train can make a complete circuit. So let's have a look at that, and then I'll come back. So from those clips that we've just watched, I think you can see that the Class 321 now will go across quite complicated point work. It'll also handle quite tight curves. It does seem to be running relatively well as we watch it heading up the helix. So what I would say is, I'm not recommending that anybody does what I have done. I've obviously made this modification which has worked for me. I'm not saying that if somebody does this modification that it will work for you. Every train, every locomotive, I suppose, is slightly different, but it's the way in which I have resolved this particular issue, and I'm more than happy with it. I will probably actually carry out a little bit of rewiring. I have got some very fine wire which I will hopefully use to rewire the leading power car, but that's something in the future. At the moment, the main thing is the train itself actually does work, as we see it obviously now almost up at the top of the helix. So the next part of this video is the scenery, and what we'll do is we'll have a look at the scenery, and I'll explain what I've been doing. But first of all, we'll just let the 320 come off the helix and come along the top of the helix lines. And there she goes. So I'll catch you in a bit and I'll explain what I've been doing on the scenery. So the scenery that I've been working on is the area right in front of the camera. That has now been completed up to the extended road bridge where you see the Eddie Stobart lorry sitting. So if I just probably take you along and I'll point out what I've actually done. So firstly, the end brass overhead portals, as you can see, they have now been extended right the way along there, right up to the bridge, and there's actually an end brass portal just before the arched bridge there. To make things nice and easy, I've actually put, I've added some dapol masts, or the tops of the masts, onto the side of the portals. The portals are obviously removable, so it means that when you take the portal out, you're actually clearing the overhead masts from all 4 tracks, as you can see the camera's actually pointing at. Coming back, the scenery ended literally where my finger is, and I've now purchased a new relay, well not relay, it's an electrical substation. I've put some safety railing up round about it. There's a couple of things I still probably want to put, sort of detritus that I really want to put around maybe the back of the building. And then as we move along, you'll see there is a small line side hut. Both of those products are by Graham Farish. Then we've got some scale model scenery sleepers, which are very neatly stacked over there. Probably some of you are wondering, well, why is there a bit of brown baseboard? That's where there's a signal going. I have a signal on order from Absolute Aspects, a 3 aspect with a feather, a route indicator on the top, and that's where it's going to sit. So I've just left that, if you like, unseen it at the moment. Coming further along, you'll see the first of the scale model scenery relay cabin platforms, with a small relay box in it and on the actual platform. And then again, there's another small electrical substation, that's actually from 10 Commandments. And where the original point, which used to sit here and the track used to come across here, that's simply become grass, and there's obviously cable trunking running down the middle of what used to be track. Over here, I've actually removed the clump foliage, and I have replaced it with some more sort of realistic looking trees. Coming back on this side here, this area that we're looking at here, that was just plain brown baseboard. There is now a hillside, or a small embankment I should say, and again I've installed scale model scenery palisade fencing, and you'll see some of these relay boxes sitting on the scale model scenery platforms. There's a slightly bigger one up there, if I carefully come in. And again, I've done a little bit of cameo scene setting, so we've got some track workers there, busy working away, trying to move some sleepers. And further up, there is another couple of track workers obviously taking levels with the theodolite. And again, we've got some some redundant rail that's been put in. Again, there's more bushes, etc., because it is kind of overgrown in this small area. So it's nearly, I'm not going to say it's 100% finished, but it's probably 95% finished. So we can actually, if we come right back, so it's scenic from the top of the helix, the entrance and the exit. There is obviously still some work to be done up here. The jury's still out as to what I'm going to put in there. This link line back onto the main layout is obviously complete. We've got the communication mast. We've obviously got the first of the extended road bridges there. And then we have an embankment here, which was obviously done in the last videos. And obviously the overhead masts stopped just where the camera's pointing, but that is now all complete. So if I come back, hopefully this will give you an idea of what this area now looks like. And if I come down, it should give you that sort of impression of sort of industrial inner city, sort of suburban, sort of, I don't know what you might call it, but it's the impression that I have in my head that I'm trying to convey. It's industrial, there's lots of lines, but there's still a little bit of greenery about. If I come round obviously on the other side here, we're just back to obviously the plain track here on these new helix lines. So that's my next job. Next job will probably be to in actual fact extend this bridge, and once that's extended I'll then do what I've done before. I'll work between the extended bridge and I'll come right the way back to this bridge that you just see in the foreground there. One other thing which I should have mentioned, obviously the Class 321 came from Revolution Trains. I have actually purchased a couple of the Viscosa wagons from Revolution, which is this one here. There's actually one at the front of the train as well. This one here doesn't in actual fact have a flashing tail light, which hopefully if I maybe zoom in you can see it flashes. That's just simply, there's a small circuit board inside the wagon. It's covered by the load. You simply take the load out and there's just insert a couple of batteries. There is a switch on the underneath of the actual wagon so you can actually switch it off, but it is actually pretty good. And the wagons themselves, can't fault these wagons. These are excellent wagons from Revolution. Absolutely fantastic, and they obviously they go well with the Dapple wagons, and you see lots of these trains, a lot of these Viscosa wagons, especially if you watch Leslie Gilpin's videos of Carlisle Station. You will see these on quite a regular basis. Okay, so that's really the update from me for all the work I've been doing on the actual layout. This will probably be the last video. By the time this goes out, it might be very late November or early December, so next video will probably be at the start of the new year. So I'm going to wish everybody a very early Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And what we will now do is we'll get some trains running, and we'll actually see some trains coming through this new scenic area. So I hope you enjoy that, and I will catch you all in the next update. Thanks, and thanks for watching. Bye.